Today we finally got a look at some footage of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, with Eiji Aonuma going over a few of the new mechanics and gameplay changes. While they're still keeping a lot of secrets about this game, it felt great to finally get an idea of what it will be like to actually play it. We've only gotten tiny glimpses of gameplay mechanics in the trailers so far, so seeing it all come together is awesome. There's almost no story details in this, but honestly I'm okay with that since we're so close to launch. I think focusing on the mechanics was a good idea. I want to start by saying how much I enjoyed this presentation just in general. It was so cool to just sit down with Aonuma and have him show off the game he's worked so hard on. The pacing and vibe of this video felt more like the classic directs from older times, which I really appreciated. Takes me back to that original gameplay reveal for Breath of the Wild. Unfortunately, a lot of this footage has been compressed weirdly thanks to YouTube, so sorry if it looks a little low quality at parts. I'm not going to do a super in-depth analysis of all the footage, but I do want to go over it and give you my thoughts on the things that stood out the most to me. Right at the start I was a little scared because the first thing he showed off looks almost identical to footage from Breath of the Wild. Riding a horse in a familiar location with the stable and everything. But even here there's already lots of differences. There seems to be a Korok over here with a backpack that wants some help finding a friend. This seems like some kind of side quest, and I can hope that the side quests in this game are a little more involved and enjoyable than they were before. And right over here we can see this sort of wooden platform, which I've seen people suggest might be a place where you can rebuild the houses of Hyrule, which would be fantastic. Expanding that sort of Terrytown rebuilding side quest into a main mechanic of the game where you create new buildings all across Hyrule is a genius idea if that's really what this is. Then we get introduced to one of Link's many new fancy arm abilities, this one being Recall. We've seen this ability in previous trailers, but it's great to see it in action. This confirms that the way you get back up into the sky is by reversing these falling blocks. The most exciting thing about this is that the sky and surface are going to be seamlessly connected with no loading screens, which is something I've always wanted in a Zelda game ever since Skyward Sword. This takes Breath of the Wild's open-air exploration concept to a whole new level. The flow of gameplay will be really important in this game, so this new method of switching between the skies and the ground is a big deal. Then we get this beautiful shot of a giant sky island, with a huge building looming in the distance. We get a better shot of this later, and I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but I think this could be the entrance to some sort of dungeon. It's too big to be a repeatable challenge structure that's spread across the map, so I cannot wait to head inside and figure out what secrets this building holds. Classic dungeons is one of the last big questions I have about this game, so I'm really hoping they're included. Here we get a good shot of a brand new enemy type, called a construct. Having new enemy types was one of my biggest hopes for this game, and this is yet another fresh one to add to the pile alongside the new flying creatures and Bokoblin King. Here we can see that yes, weapon durability is returning, which personally doesn't bother me since I actually really enjoyed it in Breath of the Wild, but thankfully they are actually addressing it, just not in the way I expected. Thanks to Link's new fuse ability, he can fuse objects in the world onto his weapons and shield, giving them new attack power and strengthening their durability. So now if your sword is close to breaking, I assume you can just fuse it with something new and keep using it. I think this is a great middle ground that should help with the frustration of breaking weapons, while not removing the system entirely. It's impossible to tell just how in-depth this system will be, but seeing how much focus they're putting on it makes it seem like it'll be pretty robust. Even just combining this long stick with a pitchfork and making this super long spear gets me really excited for potential combinations. You can also fuse items from your inventory onto arrows to give them special properties, which will give your items way more functionality beyond just cooking. This makes it so the item gathering and combat are actually intertwined, which is an amazing idea. These sorts of core gameplay changes are exactly what I was hoping for in this game, so it actually plays differently than the original and has its own unique identity. Next we get a look at the Ultra Hand ability, which works as the vehicle crafting system. You can connect seemingly any large object in the world together using this green glue stuff, and then attach some propellers to turn it into a makeshift vehicle. People were already making flying machines in the original with just a few octo balloons, so I love that they expanded that into an entire system. In Breath of the Wild you have a choice between either walking, riding a horse, or using your motorcycle if you've beaten the DLC, which all kind of get old after a while. So adding new ways to get around the world and traverse through Hyrule will do so much for the replayability and exploration. I'm super excited to dive into the game myself on launch day and try out all sorts of weird combinations to make the ultimate flying machine. Both the Fuse and Ultra Hand ability make it so this game kind of has a crafting system, but it's not really a typical crafting system you'd find in something like Minecraft, which is exactly what I wanted. There also seems to be new NPCs walking around the Sky Islands, which is just super exciting to me for some reason. I just can't wait to run up and talk to everyone, and I'm especially interested in the lore of these new floating islands. It's also worth mentioning that the word Zonai did appear earlier from an item drop, so the Zelda theory community's years of hard work seems to have finally paid off. I'm so glad the Zonai are actually going to be important. And finally, there's the Ascend ability, where you can launch towards the ceiling and go through it to pop out on top. It seems like you can use this pretty much anywhere, even if there's lots of rock between the top and bottom like in this cave. And speaking of that, there's caves. Adding caves to the map was another one of my biggest hopes, and this seems to be exactly that. You can even see these little cave icons on the minimap, which have little check marks on them implying that you have to complete them like shrines or something. And then we get to see some short skydiving gameplay in action, which looks like a ton of fun. You seem to have pretty good control over Link while he's free-falling, and I'm excited to try this out for myself. At this part when he was diving towards the river, I totally thought he'd go under the surface and confirm underwater exploration, but sadly that doesn't seem to be the case. But I'm still holding out hope for an item or something that lets you do that. This super cool special edition Zelda Switch OLED got revealed, which I definitely don't need and will do everything in my power to resist buying. Oh crap, I already bought it. Seriously though, I haven't gotten a new Switch console since my launch system in 2017, so I've been waiting for a really great special edition one to upgrade to the OLED model. I almost got that Splatoon one, but I'm glad I waited for the Zelda one. That Triforce design on the dock is amazing. Anyways, that's pretty much the whole presentation. This wasn't like a massive blowout of information relating to the story and world changes, but it's still enough to satisfy me and get me really excited for launch day. This gameplay has finally made me feel like Tears of the Kingdom is actually a real game that I'll actually get to play one day, and I'm super excited. But I totally understand if some people out there are a little disappointed by what they showed here, or just by the marketing in general. They're keeping pretty much everything about this game a secret, which is very different than usual. But I have hope this game will turn out to be a masterpiece of a Zelda game. Breath of the Wild is still one of my favorite games of all time, and this sequel seems to be improving it in every way so far. Already, a ton of my hopes I put in previous videos have been confirmed, and I can only imagine how great the full game and story will be. That most recent trailer was just enough to get me really interested in where the story will go, and I'm really excited to see what happens with Ganondorf and Zelda. When it comes to Breath of the Wild's sort of sandbox physics-based gameplay, Tears of the Kingdom is looking like a big step up, and I'm hoping the story and exploration will be even better as well. I haven't been this excited to play a new game in a while, and it feels good to be hyped again. Let me know what you guys thought about the presentation in the comments below. It's totally fine if you don't share my excitement. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.